Hello and welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast show where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I'm so delighted to be joined by our first ever police officer actually on the show, Mike Hickman, who is the Positive Action Manager and Detective Constable for the Surrey Police. Mike has had a wealth of experience, over a decade working within the police forces, and also had a very interesting career as well, starting off working for theme parks and the likes of Chessington and also Thorpe Park. So I'm really keen to welcome him to the show today to learn a little bit more about him, the world of policing, and his take, of course, on diversity and inclusion. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Hi there, Leila. Thanks very much for that introduction.
I only hope I can do you justice. I have to say, the world of policing is fascinating, yet relatively new to me. So it'll be great to hear more about you and some of the current projects that you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic time for policing. Really good, I'd say, the opportunity of a generation at least.
Indeed. And just rewinding the clock back a little bit, just to kind of introduce you to all of our listeners and to those who might be tuning in on YouTube today. Talk to me a little bit about you and how you kind of, your background, how you came to obviously be where you are today, because you've had a wealth of experience and worked in lots of different divisions and areas of the police force, but then you also started life, of course, as security officer at Chessington. So talk to me a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, so I guess first job, even in school, was working at the theme parks, and it's a fantastic, fun place to work, isn't it? And meeting loads of people there. I ended up working in the security teams there. And those guys work, really closely with the police, making sure that the sites are a safe place for people to go and have a great time. So I guess I was almost recruited out of the police, from having those interactions with those police officers and having chats with them about what they do and the variety of roles that the police offered. And one thing led to another, and I ended up joining myself.
Fantastic. And have you always wanted to be in the police, or was it kind of something that had happened almost organically? The young Mike growing up, did you think, I want to be a police officer one day?
I'm not sure if I should be telling you this, but I always wanted to be a pilot.
Wow.
So I did all of the cadets at school and then through university. But then ended up failing my eye tests, so I couldn't fly anymore.
Oh.
So part of what I've always wanted to do is to be part of I guess a uniform service, and in some way give back. So I guess one door closes and another one opens, and that's how I ended up coming through to policing anyway.
Wow. And what about kind of a little bit about you and kind of where you're from? And again, obviously, I had the pleasure of meeting you at a diversity conference a number of years ago. And I hate to kind of, guess where people are from, but I was thinking, do you look to have kind of multicultural background yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Hong Kong, as was my dad and his mum. But I guess that's where we start sort of losing those similarities. So my mother is Japanese, and her side of the family is all Japanese. And on my dad's side, so my grandpa is as Yorkshire a man can be. Born, raised in Yorkshire, worked in the mines, ended up joining the army, and the army sent him to Hong Kong, where he met his wife. And then it was on one of his deployments that my dad was born there. And they came back again. And then my dad started to work abroad as well and met my mother in Japan. And then they had me in Hong Kong. So I don't quite know how we've made it 3 generations born there. But yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So you're half Japanese then,
Yes, yeah.
and half
And then,
Chinese.
well, I guess it'd be a quarter
What's
with a quarter
Chinese?
British. Yeah,
Oh, wow. So unique mixture of everything then. And
yes,
well, I can't completely understand, of course, where you're coming from, but I was also born in Hong Kong
mm.
as well. I was actually adopted by British parents. And my dad's a bit Scottish, bit Irish, bit Welsh. We lived in Yorkshire actually
Yeah,
and grew up in Yorkshire. So yeah, quite familiar with the kind of the hardcore Yorkshire accent as you
yeah.
mentioned there. Very interesting. Okay, and I know there was a number of kind of topics to cover today, and I really wanted to kind of share with some of our listeners some of
Hmm.
the key pieces you're doing, perhaps around reverse mentoring, which I know that you're very passionate about,
Yeah,
and also the tempered radicals piece as well, because you've done quite a lot kind of around psychology and understanding various different individuals within lots of different parts of the organisation. So it'd be great to
yeah,
chat
absolutely.
through a little bit more about that, Mike.
Yeah. So, well, I guess that if we start with the reverse mentoring, then, um, I know that you've had people on here talking about it before, and I'd not really heard of it maybe sort of a year or two ago, but as soon as I did hear about it and sort of spoke to some of the colleagues of mine, um, we thought it'd be a fantastic idea for us to use an idea like that in the police. So, because of the nature of policing, it tends to be that you join at the very bottom and slowly progress through the system towards the very top, which means that those people with you know you can only get to the top by doing a reasonable amount of time in certain posts. So initially I offered the chief constable for Surrey reverse mentoring, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying that initially he wasn't quite sure what it was, or how it would benefit him. But to be fair to him, he was really open-minded about it. We had a very open discussion about it, and I think the relationship worked really well. So what we try and do is share experiences and incidents that have happened in my career from my perspective that, quite frankly, he just can't have. And it was really interesting and almost enlightening for him to be able to share those experiences, and for us to be able to discuss how maybe my perspective would be different to his. So based off that relationship, we now offer reverse mentoring to all of our chief officer group. So that's the chief constable, the deputy chief constable, the assistant chief constables, our chief superintendent. So they're normally divisional commanders, and all of the police staff roles that are at the same equivalent ranks. And that's due to start in the next couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. It's been really good.
Brilliant. Oh, that's so exciting. And all of that has come off the back of the first initial test that you've done. And obviously it's worked out well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It really is about sharing these experiences that other people can't have, because I genuinely believe that those senior officers understand the problem, but it's not really something that's alive to them because they haven't lived it in the same way. So I'm really excited to see how it progresses, and we've used it as an opportunity to get all of our underrepresented groups almost a place at the table. So it's been fantastic.
That's so good. And I think, like you say, it is really understanding almost through the lens of another person, because even though we are all human beings, we all view the world in a very different way. And,
Yeah,
whether it be age, race, religion, ethnicity, etc., or, seniority and what have you, it's actually giving that very different and unique perspective on things.
yeah, absolutely.
And giving a voice, like you say, to some of the underrepresented groups, because, especially without mentioning the B word, it is it is a specifically, it's a crucial time for the UK, especially right now, to be
Yeah.
taking on board lots of different ideas and thoughts from all different generations and different minority groups as well, so that we can all try and shape the world and make it a better place, both in life and in business, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's like you say, it is a really interesting time, and think what you want of the current government, but Boris Johnson's made some promises about increasing the number of police officers, and that in itself provides policing with this hugely well, it's just a fantastic opportunity. We're now in a position where potentially in 3 years' time, the police force could be representative of the community that it works for. And that's incredible and fantastic.
I can see how passionate you are about that, and I really, really hope this is the case. And the work that you're doing, clearly, is one step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have there been any kind of aha moments that you have had during this reverse mentoring time?
I think quite well. I think there's been quite a few of them. I think the thing is that, I guess from my perspective as a frontline officer, I tend not to see the more strategic picture and the things that those chief officers are dealing with on a daily basis. And because of the position that the reverse mentoring puts you in, it's very much not a case of calling the bosses sir and such. We use each other's first names, and it means you can start to be more open and frank about things that you're going through or have experienced. And even though I've lived those, he can still provide me with a different view on those incidents that have happened, and maybe able to help me understand what's happened under those circumstances. So yeah, I mean, things like reverse mentor, any mentoring, it works both ways, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think what you're describing there is really cultivating that relationship, and it's a unique relationship, because where else if not through mentoring do we, whether it's in the workplace or I suppose even in our personal lives, take time out to actually say, hang on a minute, what have you been experiencing recently, what has happened, why has it happened, and actually take that time, because life's busy, I guess. And I think it's wonderful to actually down tools and be able to share those insights and really build up those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk to me about, and I have to say, I haven't heard this term before, and so I'm looking forward to hearing about it, but tempered radicals, what is this all about? Talk to me about this, Mike.
So I've been, as part of my new role in the positive action team, I've been sort of going out and about and talking to other diversity and inclusion practitioners, as it were. And it's not a phrase that I'd heard before, and it sounds quite jargony, but effectively,
I'm glad you've not heard it before, because it makes me feel better. I was reading before thinking, oh my goodness, tempered radicals, I don't know what that is.
I'd never heard of it, and sort of within the space of a couple of months, I've been called it a couple of times now. And so for me, what it means is that so I love my job. I love the police. I love what it stands for and the part it plays in society. But at the same time, there are parts of policing that I don't agree with. So the fact that we're not representative of the community, and under some circumstances, it works against diversity. So under those sort of circumstances, I want to see it change and change for the better. And that's kind of what that's what I take to be what tempered radicals are all about. I believe it's come from a book that was written by, I think it's Mayerson.
Patrick Mayerson.
Yeah, but I've been sort of dipping into it a little bit, and I just think it is such an interesting idea, and I think it is something that really is there. There's a lot of people that work in a whole load of different places that do love the work that they do. They love the organisation that they work for, but obviously, while at the same time as wanting to succeed, they want to improve the business and make the whole thing better for everyone.
That's so fascinating. And I'm going to be going to go and do some research now on Patrick Mason. I will put that into the link for the show notes as well, so people can go ahead and kind of check that out. But it's a really interesting concept. And, like you say, these organizational kind of insiders that want to contribute and succeed in their jobs, and making sure it's kind of brought to the front line. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that whole idea of rocking the boat. Not too far that people start to fall out, but at least sort of starting to introduce concepts and ideas and conversations that maybe people weren't having because of an acceptance of a particular culture or something like that.
Absolutely. It's like positive disruption almost, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Very good. And I wondered, of course, we're on the Diversity and Inclusion podcast, and I love that I can see how passionate you are about D&I and actually making a difference, especially to the police force. What does diversity and inclusion actually mean to you, Mike?
So I guess for me, I would I'd break them into two different parts. And for me, I would say that diversity is more about difference, and whether that be different of opinion or color or race or whatever that might be. And then inclusion for me is about being able to use all of the benefits that diversity can bring. So being open to hearing different people's opinions, understanding how another person's culture might be different, and what the sort of implications of that might be.
Okay, excellent. And I wondered whether we can just hop into I'll call it a little lightning round, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to answer each of the different questions. I'm sure you probably heard it before on the show, because I know that you listen in.
Yeah.
But firstly, biggest question, what is your secret to success, Mike?
So for me, I don't think there is a secret to success. I don't believe in fate or luck. So for me, it really comes down to, doggedly chasing down those goals, setting those dreams and aspirations, as high as you can, and keep pushing on until you make that a reality. So I guess one of my favorite sayings is that it's not the problem that you've got to worry about, it's how you're going to solve it. And that's, it's something that we do a lot in policing. It's, we come across a whole range of different things that you may not have ever come across before. But when a police officer turns up, you expect it to be dealt with, don't you? You expect it to be solved, and that police officer is the person that you're going to look to in the room. So I think there's, plenty of ways to skin a cat almost, and it's about trying different things and pushing in different directions until you get to where you want to go.
I know. I really want to ask, so I don't know whether comms will let me, about all the different situations that you've had in policing, because they often, I know I'm digressing a bit here, but as probably have many of the listeners and viewers watched police camera action and really enjoyed it when they were younger, and still watch these policing programs and think, oh my goodness, it's such a tough job. It is a tough job, because you kind of, you probably get given, I'm sure a lot of the time, a pretty difficult time, and you're there obviously to help, and you're having to think on your feet so much, and so yeah, it sounds pretty challenging. And so your quote about trying to actually solve the problem, as to not be talking about it so much, but actually looking at how to solve the problem, makes sense. Because
I like I said, I love policing, and it's one of those roles that's afforded me so much opportunity. So even within my short career, I've been able to do a number of different things. So I've been a frontline officer, I've been a detective in safeguarding. I've worked as a detective sergeant in the criminal investigations department. I've also done desk jobs working as a staff officer for one of the divisional commanders, and now I'm working in diversity, doing positive action work. And I just think there aren't that many careers in the world where you get access to such a wide range of opportunities, that you can try, and if you don't enjoy it, then you can move and try something else. So yeah, there are jobs that we go to that are really hard to deal with, and the sort of mental health aspect of it is now being much better supported, and rightly so. The sort of statistics around it can be quite harrowing, and some of the things that we end up going to deal with are quite harrowing. But at the same time, there are very few jobs that I know that refer to their job as the job, and that you refer to your colleagues as family. So it is a real sort of pros and cons kind of thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that you are such, I hope you don't mind me saying, because I think you're such a great role model, not just for those that might like to join the police or are in the police, but also for someone that represents diversity and inclusion within the police. Because, certainly as I was growing up, I did actually look into being in specials actually once upon a time.
Join us. We're open at the moment.
I will consider it. I don't know how great I'd be in the police, but I have to say, speaking to individuals like yourself would definitely be more likely to kind of tempt someone like me.
Definitely. Well, I think that's the thing with policing, is that we're not looking for one type of person. We go to a range of jobs, and those range of jobs require a range of people, and that's why having diversity in the police is so important. That you can have those real conversations about the real things that we deal with, and be able to you have to draw links with everyone, don't you? Everyone that you go to speak to for whatever job that might be.
Exactly. And representing the community. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No.
But no, you're quite right. There is a place for everyone, and it's having that representation. Because I think back, and again, thinking about to myself, so I'm sure other people are listening in. When they were growing up, were there people that looked or sounded like yourself at all? Because that's what we naturally, instinctively, as humans, kind of look to. Is there, this person I'm looking up to, or this person that I think I could be one day in my career? Do they look a bit or sound a bit like me, or can I relate to them in any way, shape or form? Because that's really what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is that, and we do struggle to role model people at the moment because of the structure of policing. It will always take time to get those people into those positions, but the fact of the matter is that policing are taking it seriously. We are tackling the problem. We are using the equality laws to ensure that we give everyone the best opportunity that they can to come and join us. And I guess the other side of it is that everybody wants that change for the good, but it takes people to join the police to begin to make that change. So there is also the onus on the community to become part of the police. So yeah, it is a really interesting situation that we're in, but like I said, I think it's great, and it goes all the way back to so the founding father, I guess, of British policing, Sir Robert Peel, set out these, they call them the Peelian principles. One of those Peelian principles is that the police are the public and the public are the police, and that's still relevant today. We want to represent our community, which is exactly that. And not only that, but police officers are members of the public. They're members of that community, in as much as members of the community are police officers.
That's really insightful. And I mean, just before we wrap up, I'd like to just ask another couple of quick questions. I realised there that was probably my worst attempt at a lightning round ever, because I've completely gone off.
My fault.
No,
yeah.
no, it was my fault. Honestly, it was my fault. And they're asking you lots of other questions about a million other different things. So I'm going to just ask another couple of quick questions before we summarise today, because it's been really great chatting with you. But I wondered, who has inspired you most throughout your life, or even your career? It could be someone within, or people within your personal life, and also your work life too.
I guess when it comes to sort of inspirations, I think I love rugby. I've always played it ever since I was little, and for me, I feel like I learned a lot on the rugby field. Well, maybe not at the time, but looking back, the whole sort of teamwork thing, the fact that there's a place for everyone in rugby, the bigger guys and the smaller, faster guys, there's spots for everyone. And what I really love about rugby is the I guess the sort of mindset that the captain, while they're the leader, is still out there putting the most work in, working the hardest, going out there and making sure that everyone is being looked after and everyone knows what they're doing and their places. So for me, people like Lawrence Delalio, that I guess they talk to me in that personal way, but also my other half, I think she's incredible. She's so supportive in terms of what I do, and challenges my way of thinking to help me sort of develop, and embraces the fact that I am ambitious and I do want to go places and I want to try things, and I'm rocking the boat and so it keeps me in check. So I think it's great to have someone so close to me that I know can act as a feedback loop and a sounding board as necessary.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. And when she listens in as well, massive brownie point for you as well.
It's as if I planned it.
It's like it happened. And then just last quick question before we summarise today's session, which has honestly been really, really brilliant. I wondered, if you were to go back and kind of give yourself any advice, or give the young, even though you're obviously young already, but if you were to give the young Mike advice, is there any advice that you would have given to your younger self, or any advice that you'd like to give to anyone out there who might be having a bit of a tough time?
Absolutely. I think that it's really important that you get a group of people around you that you trust, that you feel and they feel confident enough to give you feedback, but also provide you with support to help you get to where you want to go to. Because I think that means that you can speak to them, you can ask their opinion, and if you can continue to keep building that network and group around you, then that's only going to benefit you in every way. So I found that with my career, it's fantastic to have the right people to ask the right questions to and get feedback from. When it comes to some of the jobs that we deal with, and talking to people about those experiences, there are people that I know that I can go to have those frank, honest, and sometimes unpleasant conversations with. But being able to have that network around you that surrounds you and you can go to is, I think that's key. I think that's absolutely key.
What a great way to end the show. And thank you so much, Mike, for joining us today. You've been a real great sport. You've been a great guest to have on.
No, thanks very much for having me.
And I'll just summarise for our listeners, because obviously, they can reach out to you, Mike. I know that you're on LinkedIn, and I'll put all of that into the show notes as well for today's episode. But just quickly want to say, as a bit of a summary from learnings for our listeners today, and there have been many, but the reverse mentoring piece in particular, plus the fact you're such an enthusiastic individual. I can see how much you are passionate about diversity and inclusion and really making a positive difference within the police force. And, for anyone that's listening, I think, if you are kind of, thinking about a career move, without this sounding at all like an advert for the police, which is not at all, definitely get in touch with Mike, because I think, some of the pieces there about reverse mentoring, if you are in an organisation at the moment, you are struggling, then definitely try and speak to someone about the reverse mentoring, because it's so incredibly helpful, as you can see from Mike's example today. And also, the piece that he said, about making sure you keep that network. The more people that you speak to, the more people that you have around you, the better. I think it was really very memorable, actually, the part of the podcast when Mike talked about kind of police and work being like his family. And I think there's something really wonderful about that, because at the end of the day, we spend more time at work than we do with our actual families. And so really having a good relationship with people around you, having difficult conversations, open conversations, and being able to have that support network is absolutely critical. So hopefully that you've all really enjoyed the show today, and I'm sure got a lot out of it, as I have. And I'll thank Mike very, very much again for being here, and say that my name is Leila Mackenzie, and you've been listening to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast, which is with you every week. You can check us out on www.dalglobal.org/podcast or www.leilamackenzie.com/podcast. And I'll put all the show notes in there from today's episode with Mike, everything about the reverse mentoring and the book that he mentioned as well. And you can connect with him as well directly on LinkedIn and reach out to him that way. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.